A verdant mountain loomed in the backdrop, while a towering tree dominated the foreground. This edifice was none other than Valhalla, one of the premier hunter training institutions. Within its walls, a throng of individuals stood armed, their gazes fixed ahead. Every year, aspiring hunters vied for entry into this esteemed establishment through rigorous trials, resulting in many defeated candidates. The admission rate stood at a daunting 500 to 1, with less than 150 fortunate souls earning the right to graduate from Valhalla. The entrance examination commenced immediately following a briefing. Amidst the fervor, a scuffle erupted, obstructing a ladder. Meanwhile, others retreated to their cabins to hone their combat skills. A man observed the scene through a transparent window with a discerning gaze. He was Lee Sun-al, the esteemed senior instructor of Valhalla Academy. Glancing to the side, someone remarked on the abundance of applicants this time. Lee turned his attention and spotted a young man in a suit approaching. It was Hyun-oh, the heir of the Yashan family. Lee regarded him sternly, suggesting that the admission process might hold more intrigue this time. Inquiring if June had come to scout for his niece, Lee's tone remained firm. June leaned in, his gaze forward, acknowledging his family's expectations. As Lee looked ahead, Yan whispered softly to his comrades. Reflecting, Lee's mind drifted to Yin, a remarkable student with vivid purple hair and matching eyes. Born into the esteemed Yashan family, Yin was a prodigious talent, mastering mana at a tender age and wielding weapons with deadly precision. By 13, she could rival her mother in skill, and by 16, she had surpassed even her closest kin, emerging victorious in family conflicts without fail. Lee gazed ahead and recited details from Soyeon's personnel file before turning to Yu, inquiring if there were any undisclosed facts. Manjun, composed, revealed rumors of Soyeon's purported ability to communicate with their family's guardian constellation. Lee was taken aback by this revelation, prompting Manjun to ask if he believed it. Lee sought confirmation, to which Manjun affirmed with a smile, explaining the high expectations placed on Soyeon. Suddenly, a luminous notice appeared in the sky, illuminating the reason behind the existence of the 5 Korean families, their connection to guardian constellations. Figures cloaked in electric lightning materialized, representing these constellations. While hunters typically formed contracts or received blessings from guardian constellations, those associated with the 5 families held unique significance. Soon, a man wielding a katana emerged, the Yashan family's sword god. Following him was another figure brandishing a bright purple spear, the Junsen family's holy spear. Then, a half-naked man grasping a crimson sword appeared, the Chon family's king. Lastly, a man thrusting his fist forward materialized, the awesome family's fist fight king. Next, a man cloaked in green attire emerged, drawing a bowstring. He was the dodge and fame's bog god. Standing alongside were 5 shadowy figures representing each family, all blessed by their respective constellations, endowed with unparalleled talents and abilities. Lee absorbed the information attentively, recognizing the profound disparity between mere blessings and direct communication with a guardian constellation. He pondered the implications, acknowledging that if true, Soyeon was undoubtedly a prodigy. Mun nodded in agreement, expressing his full concurrence. As June leaned against the railing, he inquired about his niece's progress. Lee noted that she had yet to begin, estimating they would commence in approximately 30 seconds. Minjun, with a smile, asked if he could observe. Lee acquiesced, suggesting he descend to witness the proceedings firsthand. As numerous individuals sat in their seats, observing and recording the unfolding events, Minjun expressed his reluctance to navigate through the crowd of reporters. Suggesting an alternative, he proposed displaying the image on a screen. Lee, adopting a serious demeanor, acknowledged Minjun's seniority and interest, agreeing to proceed accordingly. With a gesture, Lee activated the system panel, projecting an image onto a blue screen. The scene depicted Soyeon standing opposite a young man, poised to retrieve her weapon. Minjun noted the commencement of the proceedings, identifying Yeon, the 17-year-old eldest daughter of the Yashan family, and a young man named Kim Joo-hyuk from an unfamiliar lineage. Observing the unfolding events alongside Minjun, Lee remarked on their apparent composure. Minjun speculated that the opponent had likely resigned himself to defeat, sensing the formidable strength of his adversary. He surmised that Soyeon's impressive abilities had given her a clear advantage, allowing her to anticipate the outcome. Meanwhile, Soyeon regarded her opponent with a serious expression, while Ju nonchalantly yawned nearby. Lee observed the lack of fighting spirit in the opponent, noting the absence of determination. With a smile, Minjun predicted a swift conclusion to the match. As the fighters assumed their positions, the countdown commenced. Soyeon wasted no time, swiftly advancing towards her opponent and drawing her sword. Infusing it with mana, the blade emitted a brilliant blue glow as she unleashed a barrage of attacks. A surge of luminous mana surged towards her opponent as she struck with precision. Lee observed the scene with grave seriousness, noting Soyeon's exceptional ball possession skills and mastery over mana at such a young age. Meanwhile, the opponent stood frozen as a trail of mana surged towards him. Despite bearing the mark of a parasite on his stomach, he smiled and accepted the hit, shocking Lee and the onlookers. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted as a surge of mana energy radiated from a man's clenched fist, signaling Soyeon's defeat. Victory belonged to Kim Joo-hyuk, who clenched his fist alongside his mother, Ju, with a sense of disconnection from the apparent weakness displayed by others. Amidst the aftermath, a jarring transition transported us 300 years into the past, where the Tower of Reflection loomed ominously. Two individuals, visibly worn and weary, stood facing each other, hinting at a tumultuous past. The man with the white hair and mask, bleeding profusely, laughed amidst the chaos, acknowledging the intensity of the battle. Suddenly, news reached him of the tower's impending destruction, with the culprit revealed as the god of destruction, Bark, the very figure standing before him. Despite his severe injuries, the martial arts god, Kim Hyun, resolved to confront Bark, striking him with such force that his head was severed from his body, sending his lifeless form crashing to the ground. Turning away from the gruesome sight, Hyun's attention shifted to a system panel that materialized before him, confirming his victory over Bark, the boss of the Tower of Destruction, in the restoration of world equilibrium. As tremors shook the tower, Hyun, weakened from his injuries, collapsed to the ground, bewildered by the unfolding events. He could only surmise that the tower's collapse was triggered by the demise of its boss. Struggling against the pain, Kim Hyun gingerly inspected his wound before deciding to rest. Gazing towards the source of light, he reflected on a lifetime spent tirelessly pursuing his career as a hunter, only to be met with this unforeseen turn of events. As he walked, thoughts of his students crossed his mind, prompting him to question whether he should have brought them here. Realizing the futility of such a decision in the face of Bark's overwhelming strength, he closed his eyes with a resigned smile, acknowledging the grim reality. Suddenly, a colossal rock descended, crushing his head in an instant. With a start, Kim Hyun found himself abruptly waking from what seemed like a nightmare, his heart racing as he scrambled out of bed. Examining his hands and body, he was incredulous to find himself inhabiting the form of a 17-year-old teenager, centuries after the Tower of Destruction's fall. Yet, despite the shock, a serene smile graced his lips as he acknowledged the opportunity for reincarnation, albeit in a weaker vessel, while retaining the knowledge gained from his previous life as the god of martial arts. Turning his attention to the system panel, Kim contemplated the implications of his new reality. He believed that if he could adapt successfully, he could lead a life of luxury and leisure, at least until an ominous message appeared on the semi-transparent window. Anger surged within him as he read that the Tower of Destruction would reappear in 5 years, demanding his preparation. Clenching his teeth and grasping his hair in frustration, he couldn't comprehend why fate seemed to conspire against him. Closing his eyes in resignation, Kim lamented Bark's survival, recognizing his powerlessness in altering the past. However, as he reopened his eyes and confronted the system window once more, a resolve solidified within him. Determined to vanquish the tower once and for all, he envisioned a future of indulgence and excess, fueled by the promise of victory and liberation. Kim rose from his bed and dressed, pondering the message displayed on the system window before him. It instructed him to return his weapons and memories on the 3rd floor, 5 rooms to the right of Valhalla. Perplexed by the cryptic directive, Kim furrowed his brow and deliberated. Attempting to decipher the message, Kim reasoned aloud, grasping the concept of relinquishing weapons alongside memories. However, the reference to Valhalla in the Constellation room left him baffled. As he mulled over his next course of action, a realization struck. He needed to locate Valhalla first. In the next moment, Kim found himself transported to the imposing structure of Valhalla, where the 4th day of the competition was about to commence. Clad in uniform, he sat on a bench, contemplating whether to participate. Eventually, he made his way onto the field, standing opposite a fellow competitor with bandaged hands. As the competition organizer instructed the opponents to take their seats, the crowd erupted in cheers, capturing every moment on film. Lee observed the bustling scene, noting the unprecedented turnout due to the presence of the 5 families' children. Reflecting on Kim, he remarked on the badge's significance, symbolizing Oak's 17-year reign as the Aon family's eldest son. Senak, with a serious expression, reminded Kim of his opponent's previous victory over him in a single day. Kim, focused and determined, met his opponent's gaze, while Senak noted that outwardly, Kim didn't appear particularly formidable. However, Kim, unfazed, remarked that winning would greatly enhance his reputation. Senak then signaled the start of the bout with a warning, "Boo is coming." Confused by the term, Kim questioned its meaning. Senak, with a stern expression, clarified that it meant quickly destroy. Kim's smile widened as he responded confidently, "If that's the case, then prompting Senak to inquire further. With a mischievous grin, Kim pointed at his opponent and dismissed him with a string of insults, igniting the tension on the field. As the match began, Oak, the eldest son of the Ain family, stood tall with his sleeves rolled up, radiating fiery energy. Despite lacking proficiency in literature, strategy, or martial arts, Oak possessed a talent surpassing all others: his extraordinary physique. Flexing his muscles and tearing his shirt, he showcased his immense strength, capable of feats beyond the reach of ordinary individuals. Through relentless training with dumbbells and rigorous wall punches, he continuously honed his already formidable abilities, earning him the title of a physical prodigy. Turning his gaze towards Kim, Oak's confidence faltered as he received a dismissive smile and a command to get out of here. Senak, witnessing this exchange, bristled with displeasure, his anger evident as he clenched his fists in preparation for attack. Rushing towards Kim with ferocity, he abruptly halted, realizing the futility of engaging in a battle of sheer physical prowess against Kim's unmatched strength. Despite his frustration, Senak begrudgingly redirected his focus, his determination unwavering as he continued towards his opponent. Kim said that just because he surpasses him in physique doesn't mean he can beat him. Senak threw a punch with his fist, but Kim bent down with a calm demeanor. Kim aimed his punch at the wall. Observing his hand, he recognized that his martial arts skills were aiding his current form. With a fluid motion, he lifted his leg and effortlessly sent Senak off balance with a well-aimed strike, causing him to stumble. Surprised, Senak fell to the ground as Kim, with a confident smile, remarked on his ability to read his opponent's moves. Following this, Kim delivered a powerful blow to Suk's body, the impact reverberating through Sen's form. Overwhelmed, Senak collapsed, coughing up green, and slumped before Kim. With a calm demeanor, Kim remarked, "Lack of harmony leads to such outcomes." Declaring himself the victor, Kim acknowledged that though his current body was weaker than before his rebirth, it shouldn't hinder his ability to hunt monsters. Exiting the scene, leaving his defeated opponent unconscious on the ground, Kim noticed many spectators on the big screen expressing surprise and dissatisfaction at Senak's unexpected defeat. The man began jotting notes in his notebook, admitting his surprise at Kim's sudden, aggressive approach. Meanwhile, a figure behind him, likely the head of the Aon family known as the King of Fisticuffs, Chu Lin, raised a contemplative hand to his chin. Despite inwardly dismissing Kim's move as a normal attack, He grappled with the reality that it was one he couldn't evade, unlike any he'd faced before. Reflecting further, he pondered his son's athleticism and how even without martial arts training, he could easily dodge blows from physical education instructors, let alone someone like Kim. Yet, this particular punch proved elusive. Recalling the battle's intensity, he realized his own loss of composure, driven by rage and an ill-considered reliance on seldom-used magic to swiftly end the fight. In contrast, Kim's swift evasion and calculated response left Senek off balance, leading to his defeat. This realization dawned as Senek, convinced he had landed a blow, unwittingly shifted his center of gravity, setting the stage for Kim's decisive strike with a seemingly effortless footstep, culminating in a single punch. Lost in thought, the man realized the astounding speed of Kim's movements, surpassing even the limits of maximum velocity. Observing Kim's calculated actions, he couldn't help but acknowledge the depth of his strategic planning. With a fascinated smile, he clenched his fist, recognizing Kim's talent as nothing short of monstrous. Before he could dwell further, the chatter of journalists caught his attention. They discussed an exceptional newcomer, Kim Joo-hyuk. Determined, Shin resolved to extend a warm welcome to their family, regardless of the cost. Transitioning to the stadium, fervent fans of Hyun filled the stands, cheering for their favorite. Across the field stood Kim, facing off against a girl with blue hair. Disgusted, he questioned why mature adults, who had served in the army, referred to a 17-year-old girl as Nuna, or older sister. Despite his disdain, Kim maintained a calm demeanor. The stage was set for Kim Joo-hyuk's final match against Hyun, the second daughter of the Chon family. As she assumed her stance, the match commenced. As she reached for her sword, Kim stood silently, observing the unfolding scene. The two faced each other, a tense standoff ensuing. After some contemplation, Kim surmised that the girl anticipated his move to attack. Impressed by her perceptiveness, he acknowledged her superiority over others in assessing the situation. With a smile, Kim inquired if he should make the first move, then leisurely advanced towards her with hands in pockets. Approaching her calmly, he positioned himself for a counter as her sword arm began to pulsate with mana, crackling with lightning. The sudden manifestation of the Chon family's ability shocked both media and fans alike. Only 5 children from 5 elite families were present at the event. Undeterred, Kim maintained his composed demeanor as Hyun poised with her weapon. Sensing the opportune moment, she unleashed a series of horizontal strikes towards Kim, her eyes gleaming with determination. During the impact, Kim's figure faded into a dark silhouette, leaving the girl bewildered after the lightning subsided, unable to locate him. Kim then advised her that telegraphing her attacks with such obvious cues made them easy to evade. Unnoticed by the girl, Kim stood to the side, exuding a commanding presence, amplifying the atmosphere with his aura. Startled, the girl turned, sensing something amiss, just as a blow landed. Attempting to defend herself, the girl wielded her sword, but Kim, surprised by her choice, recognized the ball she had employed, feeling its impact. Trembling, she admitted the weight of the weapon. Kim approached slowly and pressed his fist against the ball. Perplexed, the girl stared at the scene, unable to comprehend. Kim instructed someone to retreat, triggering a shockwave that surged through the girl's body, overwhelming her. Caught off guard by the potency of Kim's technique, she began to choke, collapsing to the ground exhausted. Kim stood calmly, observing her fall. As the girl struggled to grasp the situation, realizing something was amiss, Kim was declared the victor, turning away from the scene. Following the system bulletin board, where Kim Joo-hyuk claimed the top spot among Valhalla's top 10 students, we see him exiting the institution with a confident stride, eyes closed, flexing his arm. Suddenly, a swarm of cameramen descended upon him, aggressively vying for his attention, urging him to join their guilds with promises of unparalleled benefits. Their insistence provoked Kim's anger, leading him to sternly rebuke them all. The scene transitions to an internet article questioning Kim's mental state, accompanied by a photo of him poking people with a disgruntled expression. Speculation circulated whether he was a crazy psychopath, citing an incident where he allegedly chased away guides offering him opportunities after his triumph in the entrance competition, resorting to profanity. While some condemned his behavior as rude and unsuitable for public spaces, others defended him, suggesting that his outburst was understandable for a newcomer. Amidst the discourse, individuals speculated on Kim's social standing within Valhalla, suggesting that despite his abrasive demeanor, his prowess ensured acceptance and tolerance within the community. Following the scene of people gathered in Valhalla, celebrating the institution's prestigious history and welcoming newcomers, Kim found himself growing increasingly bored. As the crowd listened to speeches and exchanged pleasantries, Kim stifled a yawn, uninterested in the proceedings. Observing the crowd's enthusiasm, he couldn't help but feel detached. Turning his attention to a guy behind him who seemed to be observing him intently, Kim approached, only to have the guy avert his gaze quickly. Kim's sharp gaze lingered on him as he remarked on the intensity of the scrutiny, hinting at the discomfort it caused. Later, we find Kim wandering around his residence shirt-clad when the system panel is illuminated before him. It instructed him to return his weapons and memories on the 3rd floor, 5 rooms to the right of Valhalla. Puzzled by the notion of returning weapons and bewildered by the mention of flying constellations, Kim grappled with the system's enigmatic instructions. As the scene transitions to a serene landscape of blue skies and lush green trees, Kim reflects on the simplicity of attending the entrance ceremony and leaving without any issues. He mused on this realization before refocusing his attention on the conclusion of the ceremony. A sign caught his eye, indicating a room for simulating virtual battles, where a man with white hair, identified as Kim Leong, the former head of the Chon Guild of Valhalla instructors, stood holding a sign. Surveying the crowd, Kim noticed familiar faces like Yeon from the Yasha family and Aaron from the Choi family. Amidst the crowd, Senuk from the On family stood, exuding a menacing aura that unsettled those around him. The instructor, taken aback, observed the distribution of students and realized with a start that the classes had been randomly assigned. He expressed disbelief that 3 out of 5 families could end up in the same grade, causing a stir among the instructors. Upon spotting the rookie who had claimed first place in the tournament, the instructor furrowed his brow, puzzled by the student's presence in the same class. Recognizing Kim's keen interest in the situation, he resolved to maintain composure and take decisive action. Taking a moment to collect himself, he clenched his fist, closed his eyes, and steadied his resolve. Clearing his throat, the instructor confidently addressed the assembled students, expressing his pleasure at meeting them. Identifying himself as their class leader and instructor, he prepared to take charge. With a stern expression, Kim Lagoon pressed a button, initiating a sudden transformation. Startled, the students looked around in confusion as the surroundings shifted, transporting them into a forest. Bewildered and fearful, they struggled to comprehend how they had ended up there moments after being in class. Meanwhile, Kim observed their reactions silently, surveying the new environment. Following the instructor's bold move, he brandished his sword and threatened to spill blood, prompting the appearance of trolls armed with clubs. The students, trapped within a ring, were filled with terror as they faced the onslaught. However, Senuk maintained a calm demeanor, observing the presence of orcs and goblins numbering around 100. As the goblins eyed the students hungrily and launched their attack, Senuk deftly avoided their assault by remaining airborne, protected by the blue barrier. The instructor, witnessing the effectiveness of the barrier, smiled with satisfaction. Amidst the chaos, someone called out to Kim, drawing his attention. Following the instructor's instruction, Kim approached, and Leong pointed to the orcs behind the barrier, asking if Kim could handle them alone. With a calm expression, Kim contemplated the situation before Leong, smiling inwardly, speculated that this challenge might help temper Kim's ego. Considering the students' fear of facing real monsters, Leong reflected on their lack of first-hand experience and the natural apprehension they felt in such a situation. Kim looked at Leong with a knowing smile, seeing through his facade of contemplation. Recognizing Leong's desire for a swift conclusion once Kim declined, Kim's smile turned predatory, unsettling Leong. Addressing Leong's assumption that he could handle the monsters alone, Kim affirmed his capability with confidence, further perturbing Leong. Unfazed, Liang challenged Kim to prove himself. With a nonchalant demeanor, Kim remarked on the unexpected nature of the test on the first day, surmising that there must be a reward for such a trial. Liang's expression shifted as he realized Kim's intent to seek compensation. Meeting Kim's gaze, Liang understood that Kim expected something in return for his efforts. Kim proposed that if he successfully dispatched all the monsters, Liang should offer him a reward. Lian regarded him with displeasure, stating that if he eradicated all the monsters, he could have whatever he desired within his capabilities. Kim pondered for a moment, then rose to his feet, accepting the terms despite their insufficiency. Extending his hand, Kim agreed to the deal. However, Lian cautioned that Kim might not grasp the system's dynamics. Here, facing monsters was as real a threat as facing tangible adversaries. Kim retorted, "We'll just provide him the sword," gesturing towards the enraged goblins and questioning how he could combat them unarmed. Lian calmly retrieved a sword from behind him and handed it to Kim, urging him to use it. Kim accepted the weapon, examining the blade with satisfaction before positioning himself in front of the goblins, sword at the ready. As the protective barrier surrounding them gradually dissipated, the goblins were observed with smirks. Liang observed calmly, while the students watched intently. With a sinister grin and determined gaze, Kim drew his sword and swiftly delivered a vertical strike, cleaving through multiple goblins at once. Kim faced the intimidating sight of 4 pumped-up trolls surrounding him and immediately wielded his sword without hesitation. As they launched their attack, he adeptly pivoted to confront them, delivering precise strikes to their faces. With each powerful blow, the ground trembled beneath him, but Kim remained resolute, pressing on in the fight. Amidst the chaos, Kim's wild roar echoed, prompting him to draw his sharp sword with determination. With a heart-rending cry, he realized his victory as he plunged his sword into the trolls' throats, ending their menace. Surprised by his success after 3 centuries since his last firearm, Kim reflected on the battle, flooded with memories. He recalled his childhood encounters with monsters, where he relied on whatever makeshift weapons he could find on the Earth's vast expanse, be it simple tools like rakes, hoes, or shovels. Yet, nothing compared to the efficacy of his trusty sword. After a prolonged moment of contemplation, Kim snapped back to attention, sensing a looming threat behind him. Swiftly evading the incoming strike, he observed as the troll's axe crashed into the ground with a deafening thud. With a sneer, Kim recognized the troll's actions as mere replication from a preset template. This monster was nothing but an NPC. As Kim dispatched the final adversary, 2 onlookers observed him closely from the shadows, astonished by his prowess. Lian remarked on the ordinary nature of the sword he had provided Kim, lacking any magical properties, yet marveled at Kim's exceptional control over it. To the observers, it appeared as if Kim's sword effortlessly drew the monsters towards it, leaving them powerless to resist, thereby securing his victory. Sohn clenched her fist in awe while Senek, unable to contain his disbelief, voiced his astonishment. Erin awkwardly held her collar as they watched the chaotic scene unfold before them. Standing amidst the heap of corpses, Kim exuded absolute confidence in his prowess. Concealing his sword and closing his eyes, he focused on his goal of joining the Constellation team. Turning around with unwavering confidence, he locked eyes with the man and demanded, "You'll keep your promise, right?" The man seemed momentarily perplexed and lost in thought before a noise interrupted the moment. Lian, positioned at the center, declared the end of classes, advising everyone to retire to their dormitories for rest, presuming their fatigue. As the students began to file out, tidying up the school premises, Kim, completely disregarding Lian's instructions, fell asleep at his desk. Upon awakening, Kim found himself disoriented by the seemingly prolonged class session and was eager to depart as swiftly as possible. Stepping outside, he couldn't fathom the idea of teaching students, having never attended school himself. Lost in thought as he approached his residence, Kim mulled over the concept of constellations, a notion foreign to him in his previous life, yet one that intrigued him deeply each time it crossed his mind. The term constellation referred to the transformation of individuals who attained remarkable success into deities, revered alongside hunters as holy relics. Bestowing extraordinary powers beyond imagination, these entities bestowed their chosen ones with the most potent weapons, setting them apart from the rest. Kim reasoned along his journey that Korea's Valhalla stood as the world's third-largest constellation relic, recognizing it as the sole source of power amidst the perceived insignificance of swordsmanship and monster combat techniques. Clutching his collarbone in discomfort, Kim acknowledged the necessity of practicing martial arts diligently in the dormitory, yet his weakened body protested. Surprised by Arin's sudden appearance in his path, Kim looked up, taken aback. Meanwhile, in the teacher's office, Sanil and Lien engaged in conversation over hot coffee. Sanil expressed discontent over Lien's past struggles with SLE, dismissing it as embarrassment rather than adversity. Reflecting on recent events, Sanil admitted the illogicality of their predicament. Despite Kim's incredible strength, which had subdued 120 virtual monsters in the recent test, disbelief lingered over the feat achieved by a young high school student who had yet to encounter a real monster. Lien's speculations edged closer to reality, leaving them both incredulous. As Sanil finished his coffee, he expressed his skepticism regarding Kim Jw's perceived significance, differing from his colleague's perspective. He pointed out Kim's orphan status, originating from a small and perilous orphanage, a revelation that greatly surprised Liang. Liang began to entertain suspicions about Kim's authenticity in the battle, contemplating whether he was a forger. However, Liang quickly dismissed these doubts, raising his coffee glass as he assured that his own investigation confirmed Kim's legitimacy. Furthermore, Liang recalled Kim's daring attempt to infiltrate Valhalla with a mischievous grin, ruling out any possibility of forgery. Glancing back at Sanil, Liang pondered whether Kim had sought permission to access the Constellations room independently. The confirmation was unequivocal. Reflecting on Kim's determination, Liang acknowledged that Kim would inevitably achieve his objectives, expressing gratitude for facilitating Kim's ground floor pass. With a sip of his coffee, Liang solemnly announced that he had convened everyone to declare his acceptance of a significant responsibility. Leaning against the wall, he pondered the limited information available about the restricted fifth-floor area. However, anyone could access the first floor without issue, offering a quicker route inside. Lien sat in his chair, untouched coffee before him, fretting over potential future events. Arms crossed, he inquired about Liang's apprehension, linking it to Kim Jw's continued presence in the class. Liang acknowledged the concern but added the challenge of managing 3 students from 5 different families in their class, emphasizing the difficulty of controlling even one. In a burst of excitement, Lien exclaimed his understanding, only to be reminded they weren't trying to console him, but rather mentioning an exchange student from the Ventric family in another class. Still flustered, he stuttered, "You mean that Windrunner?" Standing back to back, lost in their own thoughts, they confirmed each other's suspicions. Indeed, it was a direct descendant of the Ventric family, the infamous Rockall Ventric. With a furrowed brow and cautious demeanor, Lien recalled rumors of Rockall's expulsion from the British Academy due to trouble with his cousin. After digesting this revelation, Liang let out a long sigh of relief, realizing his situation was preferable compared to the challenges awaiting the next class. Next, we find ourselves with Kim, trailed by Arin, who locked eyes with him, refusing to turn away. She questioned what was happening. Timid yet boldly, she confronted him, expressing her desire to learn swordsmanship after witnessing his prowess against the trolls. Kim, still holding his briefcase, appeared perplexed by her request. Arin persisted, explaining that she wished to learn the same ball-handling skills he had once demonstrated. Closing his eyes, Kim absent-mindedly fidgeted with his ear, agreeing to teach her the technique. However, Arin pressed on, questioning why he seemed reluctant. Kim turned away, asking why she had approached him for this, reiterating his disinterest in teaching her. Glancing ahead, he inquired if there was anything else to discuss before deciding to leave. Despite Arin, Stala, and Dimma's pleas to learn the skill, Kim remained adamant in his refusal. Growing displeased, he reiterated his lack of desire to teach her, urging her to release her hold on him. Pointing a finger, he emphasized his unwillingness to instruct her, prompting her to step away as he strode off into the sunset. Without warning, we find ourselves transported to the next day in Valhalla. Kim sat quietly at his desk, accompanied by a few students scattered around the classroom. Lost in thought, he stared ahead, then stretched his hand, contemplating his physical condition, which seemed worse than expected. With a hint of disgust, he glanced down at his hand, pondering the limitations of training in martial arts or any other discipline without magical abilities or control over mana. Clutching his fist, Kim realized that the issue of magical power could potentially be resolved if he could locate the necessary item and harness mana within himself. Before he could delve further into his thoughts, he was interrupted by someone's approach. Turning his attention, Kim saw a blonde-haired guy accompanied by a girl, the main Ventric family member, Rockle Ventry, and his maid, Yuri Defdix. Rockle stood before Kim, who observed him as he rocked back and forth in his chair. With curiosity piqued, Kim questioned the newcomer's identity. Rockle, with a hint of superiority, expressed surprise at Kim's ignorance of the Ventric family. Introducing himself, he extended his hand with a smirk, inquiring if Kim desired to become stronger. In most families, attaining power and wealth within the main lineage proves challenging for side branches. However, the Ventric family distinguished itself from this norm. Their emblem, a beak mask symbolizing a daunting constellation, set them apart, lending an eerie aura that made them unique among other families. Typically, constellations with an S-class or higher guardian safeguarded the family, selecting a member directly and endowing them with protection and power. Yet, the Ventric family chose to deviate from this tradition by engaging a non-constellation family member to fulfill their contract, ensuring harmony and avoiding disputes. This unique choice stemmed from the Ventric family's considerable influence in Europe. As members of the Ventric lineage, they held the authority to select a contractor regardless of their background. This enabled secondary branches of the family to wield the same power as the main lineage. Despite being kept under familial control, Rockle Ventry reveled in his newfound power and satisfaction. However, his arrogance led to a recent upheaval with the British Academy, resulting in his expulsion. Shocked by this turn of events, Rockle contemplated his next steps. However, his thoughts were interrupted as Felix approached him. With a smile, Rockle acknowledged that he always managed to get what he wanted, even after being expelled. Recognizing Felix as a member of the Ventric family, Rockle felt assured that they would find a way to set him back on the right path. Content with this reassurance, he envisioned the silhouette of an unknown figure with a smile, knowing he had to focus on his priorities moving forward. Rockle extended his hand toward Kim, wearing a smile as he realized the importance of aligning Kim's attention with his own. With a grin, Rockle assured Kim that if he cooperated, he would introduce him to the Ventric family constellation. Meanwhile, Yuri stood quietly in the background, averting his gaze. Kim glanced at Yuri, questioning his intelligence. Rockle was taken aback by Kim's response, feeling a mix of anger and caution. Attempting to convey his message once more, Rockle was met with Kim's dismissive inquiry about his intelligence. Kim bluntly stated that he understood Rockle's lack of interest in him, opting to assert himself from the outset. Rick Dill's demeanor shifted at Kim's words, his frustration evident as he labeled Kim a disrespectful brat. Their exchange was interrupted by someone hailing them from behind. The man instructed Rockle to return to his seat. Rockle hesitated, then exclaimed, "How could you even say my full name?" Turning sharply, he spotted Lee standing sternly in the classroom, hands folded before him. Lee's serious expression conveyed the message that this wasn't the British Academy. This was Valhalla, where obedience to instructors was non-negotiable regardless of one's family background. Rockle listened begrudgingly, questioning Lee's authority as a Valhalla instructor. With a dissatisfied grunt, he turned away and began walking forward, while Kim observed the exchange. As Rockle opened the door, he glanced back, not directly at Kim, and mentioned they would meet later. Kim regarded him with a confident and penetrating gaze. After class, Kim and the other students exited Valhalla. Kim walked ahead, feeling frustrated that he hadn't learned anything new or related to the Constellation room. Instead, he found himself entangled with an individual he deemed foolish that morning. As he pondered, he realized the guild guides were outsiders using students and instructors to monitor him. Meanwhile, Aaron quietly trailed him, prompting Kim's irritation at her persistence. When Aaron approached him again, asking for another lesson in ball playing, Kim responded with a displeased expression, questioning the necessity after their previous encounter. In the next scene, we're in a luxurious room within Valhalla's dormitory. Everything appeared pristine until Rockel, frustrated, banged his fist on a lamp and cursed. Yuri, standing nearby, looked on disapprovingly. He glared at the broken vase, feeling his anger rise as he thought about Kim's status as an orphan. Rockel couldn't comprehend why the man had laughed at him, humiliating him in front of everyone. He called out to Yuri, instructing her to summon Desir as he had someone to deal with. Standing amidst the wreckage in the room, Rockel's rage intensified, his intention now to harm anyone who dared approach him. Turning to Yuri, he demanded an explanation, but she remained silent, averting her gaze to the floor. Gripping her by the collar, he pressed for answers, only receiving pained wheezes in response. Leaning in close, he taunted, "Do you still believe you're the eldest daughter of a palace family?" Yuri was consumed by fear, stunned by his words. Rockel continued to berate her, threatening expulsion from the family for daring to defy him. With a forceful push, she tumbled to the floor in agony. After giving her a malevolent glare, he commanded her to contact Desir, emphasizing the need for someone to be dealt with. As Yuri remained on the floor, instructions were issued to her. Despite her terror, she accepted the orders humbly, acknowledging that the son of the Rise family, a second grader, needed to be informed that Rockel himself desired to see him. In his Valhalla dorm room, Kim J.W. focused his concentration, gathering internal mana within himself. With folded hands, he delved into deep meditation, enveloped by a blue aura as bits of mana danced around the room. After concluding his meditation, Kim released a heavy sigh, feeling the weight of his frustration. He lamented the weakness of his body and his inability to wield mana, sitting on the edge of his bed in dismay. Outside, Kim walked homeward, trailed by Aaron. His expression soured as he suddenly halted, prompting Aaron to become alert. Turning to her, Kim questioned her persistent presence, wondering why she continued to follow him even outside the dormitory. He impatiently inquired about the duration of her pursuit. Aaron, undeterred, reiterated her request to learn ball possession techniques. Kim, growing irritated, likened her to a parrot for repeating herself. Internally, he resolved to rid himself of her annoyance. To dissuade her, he proposed a fee of 10 million won for a single lesson, asking if it was within her means. Surprised, Aaron contemplated the cost, her gaze shifting downward in thought. Afterwards, Kim prepared to attend his class, but Aaron calmly requested his phone number, leaving Kim puzzled about her intentions. Reluctantly, he handed her his phone, questioning why she needed it. Aaron explained she wanted to share her own number with him to facilitate money transfers. Kim accepted his phone back, only to be shocked when he saw a transfer of 100 million won on his screen. Aaron held the phone to her face and asked if he would teach her. However, she then smiled and laughingly admitted she wouldn't need lessons, canceling the transfer. Kim, now back in his apartment, was stunned that a female student would send him such a large sum. He closed one eye in thought, realizing that even if he agreed to teach her, he wouldn't have to reveal his secrets, and the amount of money was significant, regardless of its origin. Deciding to treat it as just money, Kim got up from his bed and began to dress. He slipped on his sneakers, grabbed his tools, donned a hood, and resolved to find a secret vault. As he ventured out, he passed by the towering Valhalla building and a nearby stadium. Walking through the forest, Kim reflected on how he had previously scouted the academy and learned that most of the hidden notes from 300 years ago had likely been destroyed. Nonetheless, he believed there were at least 4 notes left to uncover. Kim pressed on, gathering rocks as he walked forward. He was aware that only 3 notes were likely left, possibly hidden somewhere in the mountains of Valhalla. Halting in front of the academy, he gazed up at the imposing mountain, determined to locate them. Removing his hood, he steeled himself for the task ahead. Focusing on his concentration, Kim stretched out his arms, causing the ground to shimmer with a blue glow. With closed eyes, he unleashed his mana, confident that he could locate the notes as they responded to his mana signature. Despite his limited mana reserves, Kim could sense the note's presence. In a clearing, he detected a bright surge of mana. Opening his eyes, Kim realized he had found what he sought. Moving toward the source of the blue mana, he began to dig. As he worked, Kim grumbled about his weak body, regretting not choosing a safer location for the notes. He reflected on the necessity of safeguarding the contents, especially in times of impending destruction. As the sun began to rise, Kim continued to excavate, hopeful that the contents remained intact within the hidden chamber. With a sense of accomplishment, but also shortness of breath, Kim marveled at having located the notes he had buried in a previous life. Standing in the pit he had dug, he spotted the buried safe. Crouching down, he examined the keyhole, realizing it wouldn't accept a standard key. Determined, he extended his hands and concentrated his remaining mana into a sphere, shaping it into a magical thread resembling a key. With satisfaction, Kim inserted the makeshift key into the lock and successfully opened the safe. As sunlight poured into the pit, Kim eagerly peered inside. His eyes widened in delight at the sight of an unimaginable wealth of riches and various precious stones gleaming before him. Overwhelmed with happiness, he jumped into the safe, ready to explore its treasures. Watching the treasures with his hands on his waist, Kim inquired about the well-being of his children, referring to the notes. Satisfied with his newfound financial security, he resolved to focus on locating the remaining notes. However, his attention was drawn to a set of dark purple storage stones lying ahead. Bending down to pick one up, Kim remarked that he had invested significant magic into these stones to preserve the notes. As he held the stone, it emitted a surge of mana energy, instantly replenishing his own mana reserves. With a smile, Kim acknowledged the reliability of the storage stones, feeling his power restored. He decided to prioritize securing the remaining storage stones before considering whether to take the heavy gold bars or the lighter jewelry. The scene shifts to Valhalla Academy, where Kim sits in his chair looking utterly drained. With a tired expression, he muses that he never imagined he would resort to using the notes, feeling like a fool for his sore muscles after just a bit of digging. His thoughts are interrupted by Aaron, who squats down beside him and meets his gaze. Kim, holding onto her shoulder, questions her intentions. Aaron looks at him earnestly and requests swordsmanship lessons once again. Kim, still holding onto her shoulder, expresses his disbelief at her persistence. Recalling information from his rebirth, he remembers that the Choi family, to which Aaron belongs, is known for their expertise in swordsmanship. Puzzled by her insistence, Kim asks her directly why she wants to learn from him instead of her own family. Aaron insists she prefers to learn from him, citing his exceptional skill with the sword. Intrigued, Kim questions Aaron about her father, who was a renowned hero of the Choi family. Mentioning her father, Aaron's expression turns inquisitive. After Lien's sudden arrival disrupted their conversation, he summoned Kim to the staff room. Aaron, standing to her full height, watched as Kim questioned the reason for the summons. Lien explained it pertained to their previous discussion, asking if Kim was interested. With a smile, Kim confirmed his interest and agreed to follow Lien. As Kim made his way to the staff room, Aaron reached out her hand as if to call out to him but then hesitated, lowering her gaze. Kim informed her of a meeting at the training ground at 6 a.m. Aaron nodded happily, expressing confidence in Kim's forthcoming success. In the staff room, Kim faced Lien, who was seated and waiting. Lien quickly informed Kim that his access to the Constellation room had been approved, but he was only permitted to access the ground floor. Kim expressed surprise, mentioning the basement. Lien clarified that Kim was restricted to the basement level only. Understanding the conditions, Kim smiled and asked when he could visit. Lien stated that if Kim had no prior engagements, he could go that evening. Kim eagerly agreed, confirming his intention to visit the room later that day. As they exited the staff room, Lien's serious expression betrayed his thoughts. He found it unexpected that Kim was causing a commotion over not being allowed on the second floor. Nonetheless, he confirmed they would proceed with the visit that day. Kim acknowledged his understanding and began to make his way towards the exit, accompanied by Lien. Outside, the evening had already descended upon them. As they walked, Lien pointed ahead to a massive building where guards were stationed, and everything was sealed with a red chain-bearing seal. Lien explained that it was the treasures of Valhalla Academy, the Constellation Room. Kim scanned the area, noticing guards on both sides. He remarked to Lien about the heightened security, even more than at the main gate. Lien nodded, emphasizing the importance of the Constellation Room, which made Valhalla one of the Academy's top 3. Kim absorbed the information, realizing not only were there numerous guards, but the outer wall was fortified with various magical defenses, completely encasing the area except for the entrance. The walls were tightly sealed with various seals and chains. Kim inquired if he could pose a question. Lien, observing him, inquired about the reason behind his inquiry. Kim then questioned the feasibility of accessing the second floor, expressing concern that doing so would constitute a transgression. With his hands clasped in front of him, Lien responded that while it wouldn't necessarily make him a criminal, trespassing would lead to expulsion from the academy, and furthermore, exposure to the volatile magic on the second floor could induce madness. Perplexed, Kim sought clarification on Lien's assertion about going mad. Lien explained that the unrestrained magic on the second floor could destabilize one's mind, resulting in insanity. Despite understanding the risk, Kim jovially acknowledged his comprehension. Lien, sensing ulterior motives, grew wary, pondering why Kim chose this moment to inquire, suspecting an underlying desire to breach the second floor. However, he swiftly dismissed this notion, realizing that a frontrunner for the top position wouldn't entertain such actions. Standing behind Kim as the gate swung open, Lien was certain that Kim understood he should have remained at the academy. Shouting ahead, Lien gave him a 30-minute ultimatum to leave. The guard ushered Kim through the gate, to which Kim turned back, promising a swift return. As the system panel instructed him to return his weapons and memories to the third floor, the fifth room to the right of Valhalla, Kim paused, resigned to his impending expulsion, but determined to reach the third floor first. Descending the stairs, Kim noticed gears and pipes lining the walls, pondering the seemingly endless descent. Lost and disoriented, he considered the possibility of being in a prison but quickly dismissed the thought, convinced that the Constellation Room he sought was on the second floor, likely nearby. Moving forward, he questioned the significance of his journey but hesitated, uncertain whether to proceed. Suddenly alert, Kim was confronted by the system panel, announcing that all conditions had been met for his relocation to another room. Perplexed, Kim watched as the panel slowly dissipated, leaving him baffled about the nature of the room to which he was being transferred. An unfamiliar voice addressed Kim J.W., catching his attention. He looked ahead to see a man dressed in a striking uniform, blindfolded with horns adorning his head. Kim questioned, addressing him as Bara. With a smile, Bara acknowledged that 300 years had passed, asking if it was a reunion. Before he could finish, a sudden blow interrupted him. Enraged, Kim struck him across the face, expressing his disdain for Bara's presence. Despite Bara's attempts to plead with him, another blow landed, prompting Kim to condemn him to death. Bark extended his hands once more, urging for calm and dialogue. Ignoring his pleas, Kim continued to strike him, insisting he should just perish. Despite Bark's repeated requests to cease, Kim persisted in his assault. With each blow, Kim declared his intention to intensify the punishment. After a barrage of punches, Kim stood back, observing Bark, who lay battered on the ground. Closing his eyes, Kim took a deep breath, stating that he wasn't one to resort to violence. Bark, bewildered, then attempted to rise, only to be met with kicks from Kim. Fuming, Kim justified his aggression, accusing Bark of ruining his promising future, which included wealth, honor, and the success of his students. Bark implored him to stop, diverting the conversation to their surroundings. Kim, puzzled by the empty space, questioned its nature. Bark, regaining his composure, explained that they were in an imaginary world within the relic, where Kim's current form was merely an incarnation, as his real body had perished 300 years prior. Kim stood up, surprised by what he had heard. He asked Bark to wait and questioned if he had always been in the relic. Bark confirmed his assumption. Understanding dawned on Kim as Bark extended his arms, a light yellow seal materializing behind him. Bark declared his comprehension and ascended to become a constellation, leaving Kim dumbfounded. Frustrated and bewildered by the situation, Kim lashed out at Bark once more, demanding an explanation. Meanwhile, outside, Leong observed the scene, noticing the gathering guards. As Kim exited the building, the guards approached him for inspection. Kim approached Lien, who confirmed that nothing unusual had happened. Kim explained that he had only explored briefly, fearing the consequences of delving deeper into the unknown. Lien nodded in understanding, advising him to return home. Kim agreed and walked away, pondering the events that had transpired. As he reflected on Bark's transformation into a constellation, Kim expressed his indifference and urged Bark to simply answer his question. Kim inquired about the transparent system notification bar, seeking clarification. Bark, battered and bruised, claimed ignorance. Enraged, Kim grabbed him by the collar, ready to strike once more, berating him as a fool. Bark insisted he spoke the truth, revealing that after Kim's attack, he had been trapped within the relic for 300 years without any energy. Pausing to consider this revelation, Kim released Bark, demanding to know who created the notification system. Bark admitted he had also received the notification, informing him about contacting the reincarnated Kim Hyuk to retrieve all his memories. Intrigued by the concept of reincarnation, Kim pressed for more information. Bark recounted how a mysterious figure had appeared, likely granting him ownership of the tower and causing its destruction. Curious, Kim asked for the identity of this person, but Bark confessed that his memories of that part had vanished completely. Bark speculated that the vanished memories might not return immediately. He then turned to Kim, questioning what was on his mind. Kim, deep in thought, recounted asking Bark to locate a weapon, unable to discern what lay beneath due to censorship by squares. Expressing confusion, Kim gestured widely, asserting he hadn't lost any memories and still retained recollections of the tower arch. Kim pointed ahead, suggesting that perhaps he had already discovered the weapon, triggering the return of his memories. Surprised, Kim queried if Bark had indeed found the same weapon. Bark confirmed it, revealing that within this space lay the inner world of the village's 4 sacred relics, powerful spheres emanating immense mana. Bark explained that he had become a constellation by utilizing the village sword as a relic. Growing increasingly agitated, Kim clenched his fists, ready to strike Bark once more. Bark, unfazed, questioned Kim's reaction. This prompted Kim to erupt in a furious tirade, branding Bark a complete fool. As Kim walked down the street, he pondered the enigma of his village sword, now transformed into a relic housing a constellation. Confused by the situation, he wrestled with conflicting desires. The urge to destroy it and move on, yet feeling restrained despite its worn appearance. Suddenly, Bark, once known as the King of Destruction, materialized a blue village sword in his hand. Kim reluctantly accepted it, realizing he was compelled to fulfill the quest that only the village sword could unlock. Despite his uncertainty, Kim admitted his lack of options. Just then, a voice called out to him, drawing his attention away from his thoughts. Kim turned, ready to confront the interruption. An unfamiliar voice declared Kim the winner of the entrance ceremonies. Before him stood a crowd of individuals sporting various hairstyles, their fists clenched in anticipation. A figure with yellow hair, identified as Lyric Sunrise, Valhalla Academy's second-year student and scion of the Sunrise family, spoke up, mentioning his absent, intimidating companions. Kim, unfazed, questioned Lyric's claim of being the eldest and sarcastically inquired about any junior thugs. As another figure approached, stretching his arms, Lyric commented on Kim's audacity, remarking that merely winning first place in his first year didn't warrant disrespecting seniors. Suddenly, a gun-wielding individual emerged from the crowd, threatening Kim. Lyric intervened, suggesting the confrontation be kept non-lethal. Before the gunman could finish his warning about the disparity between first and second years, he was swiftly incapacitated by a kick to the body. Kim, maintaining a confident smile, urged them to cease talking and attack him collectively. In a flurry of motion, Kim struck the assailant, deftly using both legs to deliver a powerful blow to the face. The impact sent the assailant hurtling into the crowd, who scattered as his body crashed to the ground. As they watched the assailant slam into the wall, Lyric's expression contorted into a vicious sneer, labeling Kim as a reckless fool. Lyric was taken aback when he saw Kim retrieve a sword, as he was certain Kim hadn't possessed one originally. Kim's grip on the sword felt perfect, and he taunted Lyric, mentioning his absence of balls, before menacingly instructing them to attack faster. Kim relished the prospect of engaging in the impending confrontation, confident that if they didn't comply, he would swiftly overpower them. Suddenly, the scene flashes back 3 hours earlier, revealing Lyric standing in a room conversing with an individual. The man, identified as Rock Deluria, wore a smile as he assigned Lyric a simple task, to deal with a particular student. Uriel stood silently behind Rock. Seated across from each other, Rock emphasized the importance of Lyric neutralizing a freshman named Kim, promising rewards for his cooperation in aiding the Sunrise family's interests. Sitting before Rockle, Lyric listened attentively to his instructions. Rockle emphasized the importance of cleaning up the situation, regardless of the method employed. With an ominous smile, Rockle awaited Lyric's agreement. Lyric, maintaining his composure, calmly acknowledged his understanding before exiting the room, deep in thought. Lyric realized that despite Kim's top ranking among the rookies, he couldn't compete with the seniors. The disparity between rookies and seniors was vast, largely due to their interactions with constellations. In Valhalla, students were required to visit the constellation room in their second semester of the first year and form contracts with constellations. Those who entered into such contracts became contractors, able to wield the power of their respective constellations. Kim, lacking any familial ties to special families, didn't even possess a guardian constellation. With a confident smirk, Lyric acknowledged that defeating Kim would be a straightforward task. The lyricist's confidence waned the moment he faced Kim in person. With a swift swing of his sword, Kim struck one assailant's leg, unleashing a blinding monolith from the impact. Undeterred, a red-haired assailant brandishing a knife approached Kim, but before he could react, Kim landed a blow to his face, sending him flying. As another attacker armed themselves and leapt towards Kim, shouting for his demise, a powerful impact resonated, but Kim had evaded the attack. Seizing the opportunity, Kim swiftly moved to strike the attacker from behind, taunting him for his miss. With a final blow, the assailant was propelled into the crowd. Observing the chaos, Lyric watched as yet another assailant fell to the ground, realizing the formidable challenge Kim presented. The lyricist was stunned by the unfolding events, unable to comprehend how the freshmen were effortlessly dispatching the sophomores one by one. Surveying the defeated adversaries, he pondered the disparity in skill between the two classes before becoming contractors. Yet, not all of them were defenseless against Kim's onslaught. However, his attention was drawn to Kim's peculiar swordsmanship, leaving him perplexed. As Kim advanced with his sword, Elle observed the chaos unfolding, realizing that Kim was hardly exerting himself despite the injuries inflicted upon those around him. Kim noticed a couple of hesitant individuals nearby and reiterated his warning to them, prompting them to slowly retreat. The lyricist took note of the indecision among the bystanders, recognizing their internal struggle between attacking or fleeing. In a fit of frustration, he harshly admonished them not to attack and belittled Kim as a mere freshman. Kim, however, smiled, acknowledging the tenacity of the gang leader. Elle, infuriated by Kim's defiance, prepared to strike with his sword. However, before he could act, Kim swiftly closed the distance and aimed his sword at Elle's stomach, asserting his dominance. With a steely gaze and a smile, Kim reminded them of his warning not to stand still. Pushing the sword with his other hand, he unleashed its force, piercing through Elle. As Elle coughed up blood in disbelief, he struggled to comprehend how Kim could have gotten so close to him before collapsing to the ground. Kneeling beside L, Kim raised his hand and began slapping his face gently, urging him to wake up. Once L regained consciousness, Kim questioned his identity and the motives behind the attack. As L confirmed they were sophomores, Kim, surrounded by battered adversaries, demanded to know why they targeted him. Recognizing the group as upperclassmen, Per realized they had come to intimidate a freshman. He questioned their motives, prompting Kim to demand the identity of the individual who instructed them to attack. As the lyricist confessed to orchestrating the attack in an attempt to humble the top-ranked freshman, Kim smiled incredulously, questioning if such behavior was truly condoned by the hooligans. Packing up his bag, Kim announced his departure, instructing them to clean up the aftermath. However, as the lyricist struggled to rise from the ground, he called out to Kim, pleading for him to wait. With a tentative voice, he inquired if Kim would still be able to attend the academy without any repercussions. Unfortunately, the lyricist expressed concern that despite Kim's initial success, news of the altercation would spread, resulting in his expulsion from the academy.